Welcome to another old world exploration. In this video we're going to be having a look at the city of Cincinnati in the United States. I've got quite a few photos to share with you here. It's an interesting backstory with this city. Pretty heavily populated according to the narrative in the 1800s. Some very strange population growth. Let's have a look at that. Now to the right of the screen here you can see the population growth decades by the decade. And it's unbelievable the jumps here you get. The increases like 1840 to 1850, the city more than doubles in size. And it just keeps doing that by decade by decade by decade. When we get a peak somewhere around here and then it peters back down to 300. So curious, this definitely does not jive with our population growth over time, so it seems a bit suspicious. And I say it seems suspicious because if you watch my videos you know I'm skeptical. If you don't like my skepticism but enjoy the visuals, that's fine too. You always throw it on mute and stick some music in the background and just enjoy the visuals. That storyline seems off. Here's a high school, not a very good resolution. The only copy of this one I could find, Walnut Hills High School. The high school narrative really gets me, the early high schools, and I don't know how people can justify them building like this. This also a school. You get the argument sometimes that they were just harder working individuals back then. And they had nothing else to do, they didn't have TV, and I get that aspect of the argument, but there's something about the architecture of the time that it doesn't make sense, especially how vertically they built a lot of these. And then what it takes to do that type of thing these days, infrastructure-wise. Anyway, Cincinnati, a big brewery town. I heard a ridiculous number somewhere in the late 1800s, over 20 to 30 breweries. That would be for a city of about 200,000 people. So, I don't know. And then you have all these tunnels apparently linked up with the breweries, but also linked up with the Underground Railroad during the Civil War, or before the Civil War, or right in that time period. Cincinnati being right on the cusp of the North and the South. Again, that Civil War narrative is such a huge part of the history in the States, and I've suggested that there's more to the story than that, than what we've been told. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that there's been a lot of fakery going on, and it's really it's flooding into our world right now as we gain more access to a lot of these visuals, and we get more people trying to put a different spin on the historical narrative as we break trust with conventional history. And I do find that interesting, and I think we do have to break that trust. Right? If we don't learn to break that trust, are we sort of displaying that Stockholm syndrome? Are we in love with our kidnappers, so to speak? We need to dig deeper. I think that's what I like to do, and it's not for everybody. Cincinnati, 1866, had a fire, and this fire narrative a part of, again, a lot of the major cities in North America. I like a lot of these old hotel type buildings, the square buildings that a lot of people might bypass. They don't have the fancy antiquitech like a lot of the dome tops, but there's a lot to these buildings I would suggest, and especially when we look at the interiors of these old hotels. There's much more to that story, I think, as well. It's worth a deeper dive. So you're getting a sense of what they called Porkopolis. That was an early name for Cincinnati, apparently. It cut its teeth as a pork and hay exporter, apparently. Had a huge influx of German immigrants. I mean, what city didn't? I wonder, were these countries, Germany, Ireland, were they just emptied in the 1800s and everybody just poured into America? That's almost how the population boom seems to read. So there's issues with the numbers for sure. Like this is unbelievable. This is a high school, really. I don't know how you can look at that and just pawn it off as, yeah, of course they were just they just took more pride in their craft back then. Oh yes, we have the canal too, the Miami and Erie Canal situation in Cincinnati. I did a video on the Erie Canal and the problems I have with that historical narrative. We'll get into the music hall as we proceed here. I do have a lot of photos to bring you, postcards. I'll try to keep it moving. Of course, we have the Incline tram system, similar to what we saw in Duluth, Minnesota. This is the top of the Oddfellows building. Now, the Oddfellows being also another name for Masonic organizations who seem to be everywhere, even in the most remote of gold rush outback towns. They're just everywhere. Had to have their presence. So why, right? This one's fairly obscure as well. It says Altenheim Men's, an old folks' home for men. We're told this is the only visual evidence I could find of that. Armory. I did a video on armories as well. These things are everywhere and they're built like castles. This one giving you a sense of the texture. Looking like almost like a heat damaged brick, I would suggest here. Also the roof kind of reminding me of places like Spain and more of the American Southwest. And now they have Eden Park, which is quite spectacular. It's got a lot of amazing features. You can actually see some of the rock wall here and the bridge. I mentioned that heat damage look with the brick. You can see what I'm talking about here, and then it sort of just jumps to this level here, and it's all smooth. So I mean, I guess you could say it's a different material, probably, maybe, I don't know. Or is there more to the story? I don't know. This is Bellevue Brewery, one of many breweries. And then the Bellevue House, I've seen this as well in a few communities where they have the hilltop house overlooking the town. You can get a sense in these old breweries for sort of the age and the damage, but also how decorative these are. And a lot of these old brewery buildings going back to the early 1800s. And so we're expected to believe that, what are these? Decorations? Keep the birds off? So we're expected to believe that that was just how they built for that time period, right? I think, like I've mentioned, I think we had a completely different existence, and I think it has been systematically erased, and now we're at a point where they're trying to keep us in a state of disbelief to waking up to this fact that we were once much more. Of course, you have to, if you want to control the population, you have to convince them that they're useless, and then you have to implant a false history in which you can control them. All these authors, the Orwells and the Huxleys, and they all suggest that false history is very important in controlling the population. So we look at these visuals, and all we can do is just imagine. And again, the puzzle pieces don't fit. So at the very least, we can't say what we know, but we can say what we know is not true. And looking at a lot of the evidence, we're saying this is just not possible. So we know there's a lie. And if we deduce that there's a lie, then how much of it is a lie? Do we give the benefit of the doubt on certain things that we want to hold on to? And are we just holding on to those things? Are we ready to let go of all their deceptions? YMCA? Of course you have to build a YMCA like this. You need a tower up there, right? Honestly, what a spectacular city. They call it the Queen City as well. I think that's a little more flattering than Porkopolis. Here you get one of the hotels in Hotel Metropole. Here's the Oddfellows Temple. We saw the upper half in a previous photo. Seeing this style quite a bit here. These vertical columns, they're like almost like stacks built into the building. We have a railway station. They're looking very old down here again. And you have a heavy sports narrative, sports and beer, Cincinnati. First baseball game, apparently. First professional baseball team. First professional baseball game. Cincinnati Red Stockings or something like that. They changed it to the Reds. I might have that a little bit wrong. I was watching a video yesterday. Here's another high school. I was watching a little bit on the history of Cincinnati, which I didn't know much about before making this. I had a commenter on one of my videos suggest having a look at this city, so I did, and I had looked at some of the highlights previously, but this is there's so much more. And I always say this: the more you dig, the more you seem to find. Here's a good example. This is a doctor's building. You see all the detail here on top. So what looks like just a typical rectangular building, having that detail and flair. And no doubt we've got some amazing interior finish. Marble floors, I'm guessing, granite columns, detailed ceilings. And I've mentioned it before in previous videos too. I don't really get into the interiors too much, just because for length of videos, right? But when you do see some of the interiors of these places, try to envision even doing those types of interiors in modern day. Like getting the stone shipped, getting these tiles milled up perfectly flat, and then installed perfectly flat. Chamber of Commerce. This one didn't last long. Apparently, 1800s, I think it was. Disappeared in the fire. I think it was. I think that's right. Here you have that mud flood look going on here. What a crazy building! Unbelievable. This one's gone too. Tore down in the 30s, I believe. Didn't even last 50 years. Let's see if I can zoom in here. Can't see it all that well, a bit fuzzy, but you can see actually you have a lower level, below street level here. So, seen that before. Let's get into the music hall briefly. This is unbelievable building, unbelievable. This is an old rendering. I want you to notice the decoration. You have the gate style. Features along the ridges, and you have all the statues, and then we shoot to... Oh, well, we'll get to the rest of them. I thought we had them all in a row here. It's coming up shortly. I have a section of Cincinnati also called Over the Rhine, I believe. It supposedly has a lot of the old architecture. If you're from this area and know a bit more about it, throw in some comments and let me know if I'm off. I kind of jump all over the place, all over, especially North America. So, and I've never been to a lot of these places. So if you notice that I missed the name of building, or it happens, right? I go through a lot of material here, so let me know. This is a good crisp photo, giving you a sense of what's going on the streets here. Okay, and I bring this up a lot too. So this whole narrative. Really ridiculous, I would say. We had apparently these streetcars that originally was all built into the infrastructure of Cincinnati before electricity, designed to be pulled by horses. Check the cobbles here, or brick. I'm not sure exactly what we call those. But a huge part of the infrastructure. You can also see the mud-flooded windows here, as that the building goes further down. So this, having a feel that this has been around a lot longer than they tell us. Anyway, the rail cars apparently all built with the horses pulling them until electricity came in, and then it was a transition over to electricity. It's a ridiculous part of the narrative. Here's a little shot of the library. I'll get to that as well. Unbelievable, eh? Look at that. Who's doing that? What have you asked a contractor to do that for you today? Yeah, what would they say? Part of the University of Cincinnati. You get the shots of the canals, right? And look at all stonework built in here, part of the canal network. Shot of the City Hall. I believe this is St. Peter's. Cliffside Brewery. Still. Very old one. College of Law. Look at the courthouse. Alright, the public library. Not looking like too much from the outside. I mean, it still has its flair, but we'll get to it. This is ridiculous. This is underground in Cincinnati. You can take tours apparently in certain areas, having these big arched tunnels. And there's this really ridiculous narrative that they had this plan to build a subway, and it never came to fruition, even though they chipped away at it over the span of several decades. It's ridiculous. It seems like all this wasted infrastructure and money. And when you hear those stories too, it lends to the whole narrative that we're stupid, right? Oh, we tried this, it didn't work out, ran out of money, World War I happened, halted plans. We're just stupid. So we do things and they're stupid. So I don't buy it. Another brewery. This would be the Longview Hospital. I think it was an asylum of some sort. Eden Park. This would be the reservoir at Eden Park. I mean, really? Seriously? There's that bulging sort of blockwork. Starting to get used to seeing. Of course, you have to have a water tower that looks like it's somewhere in Poland. And the bridge with the rail car over top of it. And this is just standing alone in Eden Park. You have all the brickwork intact here. 1904, we have a date here. Part of the reservoir. I mean, why wouldn't you build like that? You got all these Germans that came over. You've seen Germany in the 1800s. My God. No wonder it got bombed to smithereens. And there's the entrance to this building. So this building not looking like much in the postcard. And then you've got this actual. So this is what I was talking about with the finishes. There's so much more than just these exterior visuals. And there's so much that has been erased and destroyed. They love the old wrecking ball. Here's a new school. Now, doesn't this feel like somewhere in Europe to our minds, our schooled minds? Another picture of the damage from the fire. And I do have a video coming that sort of gets in depth on a lot of this, but can a fire really do that? Can a fire do that? Rip through the brick? Because my impression of fire is that you're just going to have black smoke out the windows, but I would suspect the brick walls would stay intact. Here you're getting a good sense of the red on top, red down the side, red in between, and some changed here. Feeling old. Another hotel. Imagine the interiors on these places. It's a bit of an interior shot here. Hotel Gibson, this one. There's a curvature of the ceiling. I've mentioned this in previous videos. Not an easy thing to accomplish, this type of work. And of course you have these very ornate chandeliers as well. At a time when electricity was in its infancy. Silly. Sinton Hotel, looking like, again, somewhere in France. Put it together. Gotta put it together. I don't know how you can't see it at this point. It's ridiculous. Even this. If you put together plans for a hotel and say, I want the dining area to have these columns with these arched ceilings. I want that. Well, what's that going to cost? Architect drew it up. You're going to get laughed at. Time and money. The old bridges. Notice whenever you see the brickwork, blockwork, think old world. I love the old steamer narrative as well. The interior on some of these steamers, unbelievable, unbelievable. This giving you a good view of the different stages here. You see here, it's hard to tell. Is this supposed to be rock or brick? This one looks like it's got 90-degree intact, but these are starting to look all bulgy and out of shape. And then you have a chunk here, definitely looking like the red brick that we see up here, but in a worse condition. This looking again like, I don't know, melted crap, and then this all still intact. And look at the detail built into the brickwork, no less. That was from 1929, that building, or 1829, sorry. And you got all these breweries here. All right, the public library again. Let's get to the public library. I tore this down in 1955 because it's absolutely absurd. Have a look at this. Why would you tear this down? It's a parking lot now. Look at this. Look at the spiral staircases. Unbelievable. Here's the front entry. Right? Do these guys have any idea? These look like the villains in a movie with the trench coats and the hats. You know, I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. It's ridiculous. Look at this. How many levels of books do we have? We have this marble floor, perfectly laid in the 1800s, torn down 1955. It certainly deserves its own video. Here again, you see some staircase. You got the windows as well. Stained glass, I believe. Why wouldn't you have stained glass in a library? Anyway, that's the old public library torn down in 1955. Here's the asylum, Longview Asylum. We're getting to the end here. I want to get them all in here. It's going to be a little bit longer than usual, but I want you to see Cincinnati in all its glory, or the remnants of its glory, anyway. There's the Incline. This is an interesting feature too, built into the Incline cars. I've seen the actual car itself built on a bit of an angle. Okay, here we are. Let's get into the music hall. I want you to take this in. Take this in. The statue work, the splendor going on up here. Also the scale of the building, because I don't think it's giving you a sense of that. Because let's move into... Okay, here we're looking at a shot from the 1888 Expo, World's Fair in Cincinnati. Yeah, they had one as well. Oh, what's going on? I never noticed that too. What's going on back there? Maybe that's the house on top of the hill. Okay, this is a view from the back. Here we go. Here we go. This is a little bit more modern. I'd say a 100-year-old photograph somewhere in there. What do we see that's different? Well, they've taken a lot of the detail off at the top here. They still have the little gates across the top here, much of the statue work has been removed. Here's a bit of the interior. Yeah, do we know who painted this? Or who did all this work here? Of course, they had a pipe organ. It's a music hall. You gotta have a pipe organ. Or a church. You gotta have a pipe organ. Another rendering of that. You get the sense again here. There we are. These even looking a bit different. Horse-drawn streetcars. This is the lobby. Wow. Wow. Alright. That was the music hall. We have the National Theater. Look at this. Of course you're going to need this. That music hall really something else. I like this one as well. It gives you sort of a sense of maybe the age of the city. The canals fully intact. The bridges, the streetcars crossing the bridges. Also, is that supposed to be the power for the streetcar right there? Maybe gone in, maybe. Who knows? And this might not be Cincinnati. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sorry about that. This is the interior of the Pike Opera House. Rendering, of course. Alright, Plum Street Temple. Let's look at this one. Odd looking with these two almost having a Islamic look to it, almost. Of course, you get the rosette windows and same features. Here's a bit of the inside, again having a bit of an Islamic feel. Interesting. These, I would suggest these are all original. Back to the breweries, though. Have a drink. Forget about that. Have a drink. Have a couple. Here's a whole keg. Why don't you do a keg stand? I do think the whole alcohol narrative is a part of the erasing, the scrubbing of our memory. I really do. Normalizing it in our society, even normalizing the abuse of alcohol, I suggest is a large part of the erasing of the memory. Inability to remember from day to day. I do remember that part of my life where I did a lot more consuming of alcohol. Here's another high school. And there is sort of a day-to-day fog that comes with that lifestyle. So, and it's not just me. Thanks. I've heard a lot of people talk about that, and it makes sense. It makes sense why it's so normalized in our society. Of course, we have to not remember that what we were capable of, or that there's a deception going on. Another little snippet of the old fire. City Hall, we've seen that in a few others. The old hospital. Check out the details going on top here. Only a rendering now of that. Magnificent brewery. This is the lower side of St. Peter's Cathedral. We've seen it with the decorative top. Look at the underside here. Looking definitely more like what we see in a lot of the modern style government buildings that we're told are built between 1910, 1930, 1940, in that range. And I have suggested that we had our memory has been basically reset post World War II. And I think it's very difficult to verify anything that went on pre-World War II. I think we have a collective amnesia. We got our bell rung. World War II was basically us getting our bell rung, and then we were firmly reset after that, is my suggestion. So we have this historical timeline, even of the early 1900s, and these buildings that went up. And I just think we have to take it all with a grain. It's very difficult to believe what we're being told, because we don't have a clear memory of the situation. coming to an end here. University of Cincinnati. Little work on the street. And we'll finish with a brewery. No shortage of breweries in Cincinnati. So this is a look at Cincinnati. Pretty much everything I could dig up on it. Interesting. Definitely old world city in my view. Definitely cover story going on. What do you think? Thanks for watching.